You mentioned just the morning meeting and even getting out of whack on that, but as far as the essentials, and I think about when we say essentials, like even if we're talking about resting, there's still even a nature of fundamentals to it, like just I'm going to connect with God. I'm going to make this into part of my life and part of my rhythm and routine. What are some of the things that you've done to go back to that, to waking an extravagant hope within?
Yeah, something that I always contend with. I think one of the things that have been extremely helpful is I tell you what, one of my fundamentals, David, is I've got a guy that's old enough to be my father who kicks my rear end into this ever-deepening intimacy with God. It's about accountability. It's about having somebody who's actually got permission to and knows really what you're doing and how you're going about it, because here's where the enemy robs us. He incrementally robs us. It's never a big bite. It's always these little bitty pieces. It's when maybe you're spending less time, or you're not going for that walk with the Lord. Probably that's something that I found particularly helpful. I can't. Where I usually hang out, up in my man cave, as you've seen, I've realized that sometimes I've got to change the venue, and I've got to go be someplace where there's not little distractions. And so I'll go over to Lake Arcadia and just go for a walk in the woods, and just talk to God. And it's just, as much as anything, folks, it's just showing up. It's just continually showing up to be with God, but not to start off with your agenda, but to start off with His agenda. And even though you say, "Well, Lord, what's your agenda?" and then you don't hear a squat, you don't hear a thing. Well, then maybe it's just a function of you're just starting off to praise Him. You're acknowledging His lordship. And I find that sometimes that helps break off the stuff that's the distractions. I mean, it's all about focusing on Him, and don't get concerned if you don't hear like some prompting, because odds are you may not. But it's all about the pursuit. So I may pursue Him. I may show up someplace. I may go for a walk. I may spend my entire time just praising Him. I may take a walk down memory lane in my mind of all the times He's shown up and shown off in my life, because I need to be reminded that it's Him. It's not me. So
that reminds me, when I was doing college ministry a few years ago, we would play a game, Remember When?
Oh,
and
yeah.
It was just like going back in time and remembering when God had done something. I was listening to a Graham Cook podcast, and he had this beautiful podcast called Giving Thanks Until You Become Thanks. And the idea of just kind of like growing from, and one of the things he said, like you just talked about, was stopping every hour and just taking 5 minutes and giving thanks. And I was like, man, that is the opposite of how I approach work. I remember I was out at Lake Arcadia. I was just starting at SALT, and so I'm starting to feel a lot of creative pressure as far as like, okay, we got to go build this thing and, all of this different stuff. And the Lord gave me a word out there, and He said, who made this lake? And I chuckled. I was like, well,
Corps of Engineers.
Yeah, no. I was like, it's a man-made lake, And He said, unless I fill it, it's a hole in the ground.
That's pretty good.
And He said, it's the same with what you do.
Ooh.
Now, you can go and try and put as much into it as you want, but, and it goes back to that idea of abiding, right? Abide in me, because without that, you won't bear fruit that's going to last.